but it's all built so that there's a period in which you do have a lot more control over it. And yes, that's going to take some time. But the main point that they're making is like, but over time, it gets better. It gets better over time, which is the main thing. And so that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is, can you afford not to try this stuff? And yet you have to ask the question. It's like, let's suppose there's some breakthrough piece of technology that comes out that the risk is very low in terms of security breach. So you have to make that decision as a company. It's like, well, should I take that risk in order to have that advantage? Or do I say no, and then I prohibit or prevent my company from capitalizing on this thing? Should I take the risk of this new technology to try to reap the benefit? Because if I don't, my competitor will.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Tomorrow's Best Practices Today. I'm Clark Newby, as you probably know, and whether you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple or enjoying the visual grandeur of checking us out on YouTube, we thank you for taking the time out of your busy day, get together with some smart folks and hear what they have to say about where things are going in B2B marketing, particularly what are some best practices that we can capture and provide apply in our everyday from these folks. So today we've got a great guy here with us. Tom Grubb has his own consulting firm around sales and marketing enablement specifically. And Tom's got a really interesting background. He's obviously been a marketing leader at places like Marketo and Connect and Sell, Intuit, Embarcadero Technologies. Most recently, he's been Chief Strategy Officer at Digital Pie, and that kind of belies a little bit his overall background. Was one of his early gigs was a performance analyst, a senior performance analyst. Sorry, Tom, at IDG at PC World Magazine. Back when there were magazines and we talked about PCs, there was PC World Magazine, and Tom would actually be trying on this technology, applying this technology. He comes from the product side, the tech side, as well as sort of the go-to-market, sales and marketing side of things. So he's got a broad experience and perspective on the kind of questions we chew on in the podcast. So welcome, Tom Grubb, to our little party here.
I appreciate it. It's good to be here, Clark. Looking forward to it.
It's great to get you. I know you've been bouncing around a lot, doing a lot of things, but maybe we'll start with what's going on in your consultancy. What particular challenges are folks kind of bringing to you? What are you working on these days?
Yeah, a little context too, I think will help put it into perspective. So I tend to
Please.
get, I tend to end up in situations with clients where it's kind of chaos. And at the end of the day, what you can cut through the chaos with is data, trusted, good information, right? Where there's questions about pipeline or whatever it is, most of it comes back to metrics and data. And what I can do is I bridge that gap between strategy, executives, how they're looking at the world, which often doesn't match with how marketing or marketing ops is looking at the world. So I'm a good listener and I get in and I try to identify usually where's that disconnect and where can I find data or information or some way to get everybody back on the same page.
Yeah, yeah. And well, I know one of the things that we're taping this in early November, so on the heels of MarketingPalooza, and I think that you spent quite a bit of time down there, right? So yeah, so what's going on down there? What did you see down there? What stuck with you? What did you think were the big themes or big solutions that you would report back from your trip report on?
Yeah, sure. So this is I think the third year they've done that, and it's a lot of that is relationship of the people that are in this crazy world of marketing operations. Um,
Yeah,
it's a place where they go to learn from each other, to reconnect, and that sort of thing. For me, it's a place to go and take a pulse. Right? It's because a lot of the work I do is still, fractional CMO, it's that sort of thing, but it's always connected to technology. So for me, it's very pertinent and it's very relevant to go down there and just take a pulse. So this year, because AI seems to be kind of everything, my
Yeah.
question to the people that I ran into was, what do you think this is going to look like in 5 years? And you can tell a lot about a lot of things by their answers or non-answers. And what struck me is, I'm just going to be blunt. I don't know how much these folks realize how much it's going to change and how much it's just going to become something we can't even really predict very well. I think they're so busy practicing their craft, keeping the trains running, so to speak, that I don't know how much time those folks really have to sit down and ponder what it might be. They're aware of it, but the most honest answer I got, it was the guy who said, I don't know, and I don't think anybody knows, but it's going to look nothing like this. Versus people like trying to explain to me what they think it's going to be, and I don't think that anybody can explain. I think we can theorize based on some of the things we're seeing, but to put it in perspective, having been around for a while, if you look at the changes that have occurred in my career, in my time, and it's pretty significant from early PCs all the way to what we have now, that happened in a very, very short period of time, relatively speaking, very short time. And if you look at the rate and the pace of change happening now, it's going to make that seem like an eternity. It's happening so quickly that it's very hard to even get any kind of a foothold and any kind of understanding that you can really hang on to. Because what's new today is literally outdated and questionable tomorrow, almost literally in
Yeah.
some cases. So to me, it was a couple of things I took away. One, I want to get a pulse for what do you guys think about AI and how is this really going to affect you and your careers and your world?
Hmm.
And then it was just a matter of, I mean, that really was everything. You can imagine the sessions and everybody, that's what's on everybody's mind. It's just AI. And then reconnecting with people that have been practicing this stuff for a while. Just an added footnote to that is I was catching up with a guy today who was, he was running mobs at a very large company. It was acquired by a private equity firm. He gave me a very, he's a very grounded view of this stuff, and he had a better sense. And when I have a lot of respect for this guy. When he looked at me and he goes, nobody knows, but man, it's going to be nothing like this. And he goes, 5 years, 3 years, it's just going to be radically different. So to me, it's the
Yeah.
wake up. Like, how do you anticipate that? How do you capitalize on it today?
Did you say so? Did you have any conversations with folks there that were trying to break that down, or what were you said a little bit that we're all tend to be hung up in our day to day. We know that a big part, I would imagine, in most all MOPS teams that certainly the ones I talk to, part of that day to day is like the board wants an update on our AI. We're applying AI, right? Or or the management team. I mean, they're using AI, they're applying AI. So where do you see folks you spoke to, or where, or in your consultancy, where are folks on that spectrum? Are there particular legs? Are there particularly early warning indicators to see where we think this is going?
Mm,
Because it's I think it's clear things are going to change a lot and it's going to be different in a
mhm.
while. So, what can we start to wrap our arms around, or where are the places to watch, do you think?
Yeah, let's talk about a couple of specific examples, and it's going to come out of a marketing ops because that's where I just came from. A couple of
Yeah.
things that struck me. One is a company that they are fairly new, and they're creating an agent, and the agent you can deploy to go do low level Marketo work, list
Hmm.
loads, different things. But it's reason based. And most of the stuff that we do in marketing ops traditionally is it's still today is dominant. It's pretty much rules based. And what's happened is that
Right.
there's so much complexity that the rules based model has completely fallen down, as John Miller will tell you. So given that, it's like this company has built an agent with a name, Mary, and you can basically deploy Mary to go do these tasks. What interested me is they're new, but I thought that the MOPS world would have heard about this stuff by now. And I would just kind of litmus test. I'd be like, have you heard of these guys? Have you heard about Mary? The
Yeah.
people I asked, only one had known about it, and they're actually using it. So I tell you about that one because you can look at you can look at AI solutions or ways to augment your marketing operations in a more of a traditional way, or you can look at what these guys are doing, which is a groundbreaking, revolutionary way. I'm going to go
Hmm.
walk away from the rules system. It's going to be all reason based. I'm going to take an existing platform. I'm going to take all the stuff about it you don't like, that you hate doing, and I'm going to make it hard for you to say no, that you can now use this, my Mary, to go do it.
Yeah.
So that caught my attention. That was an interesting one. The other thing that was really blew my mind, which harkened back to like early days of tech, this guy had a presentation where he started talking about, and I heard this from other people, where people are making their own agents to solve problems now.
Yep. Yep.
And this one particular presentation got into talking about a layer like a server that would solve the problem of providing more context from your data to make prompting more effective. So you can now plug into your own data sets, whatever that might be. It could be you're plugging into Marketo, could be all kinds of things. And so what blew my mind was this guy basically was going through and showing everybody step by step what he did, how he used technology to go build his own agent. Now, it's very geeky. And the first thing I thought about, I'm like, I kind of understand what you're showing me, but is this a good use of time? I don't know. Is interesting. He was able to make his own agent that he could go throw at analytics, and he could ask it questions and it would answer them. I thought what was interesting about that is that the technology and the tools are there or almost there to where anybody can go build these things on their own. That is a
Right.
game changer because what you can wait around for companies to build them and then you can buy them and deploy them. Or maybe it's getting there so fast that like, why? I can just go build my own.
Yeah, maybe you vibe code your own with a platform and the tools. The thing that's interesting about the advent of agentic AI, particularly for MOPS is so, like you say, it's such a rules based. Traditionally it's been rules based, and it's been rules based because there's so many rules, because there's so many things you need to check, and there's so many, whether it's confirming the address or managing the spam notifications, cleaning up your data. It's so much about getting the data clean, getting it in, and then applying the
Hmm.
rules. And of course, AI can hallucinate, right? And so, what I've seen in some of the early applications of more agentic technologies, particularly around MOPS, is you can't really trust it enough to not be also standing over it, and then correcting it some of the time. And at some point, it's like, well, what am I? It's definitely, it's a bet forward, right? But in the immediate term, it's like this is taking as long or not longer to get things done. I don't know if anybody spoke to you about that, or the problem of hallucinations, or the problem of quality control in rolling, not just from someone using AI tools, but putting the operations in the hands, or part of the operations in the hands of agents.
It's a good point. I think a couple of things. Yes, absolutely. You can't just like do this stuff and run it unchecked. In fact, the guy doing that presentation on build your own agent, the last thing he
Hmm.
put up was a slide, which is like, however, be warned, right? All that good stuff. There's always a caveat.
The
But think of a
disclaimer.
couple of things.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he made a point to put up there. But think about this. So yes, take the example of what these guys are doing with the agent to deploy. I asked the obvious questions like, well, I'm a little nervous about, wouldn't anybody be nervous about just putting this thing into the wild?
Hmm.
And the answer was like, well, yeah, but it's all built so that there's a period in which you do have a lot more control over it. And yes, that's going to take some time. But the main point that they're making is like, but over time, you do begin to, you understand it and trust it, and it gets better. It gets better
Yeah.
over time, which is the main thing. And so that's one side of the coin. And more when I think about this stuff, the other side of the coin is, can you afford not to try this stuff?
Right.
Think about it. So, give you an example. If you got a company, and this is true of some of the clients that I work with, their security software offerings, and so their companies are very careful about what technology makes its way into their company, and behind the wall. And so they vet everything to the best of their ability. Um, and yet you have to ask the question. It's like, let's suppose there's some breakthrough piece of technology that comes out that the risk is very low in terms of security breach. So you have to make that decision as a company. It's like, well, should I take that risk in order to have that advantage, right? To learn and move faster in the market, or whatever that advantage is giving you, Or do I say no and then I prohibit or prevent my company from capitalizing on this thing? It's moving so fast to me. You have to really scrutinize that question. Should I take the risk of this new technology to try to reap the benefit? Because if I don't, my competitor will. So the whole question of risk reward takes on a different meaning because it's moving so fast and the leverage you gain can be so significant that if you just sit there and sit on the sidelines, where are you going
Yeah.
to end up? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody in the circles like that we run in or that's probably listening to this podcast doesn't probably have a bias to innovation, right? Some risk taking,
Hmm.
hone their competitive concern radar to make sure they don't fall behind. But so much of the application of AI, so much of the investment by firms into AI has been a lot of it has been about efficiency. A lot of it has been about cost savings, right? Um, and it puts me in the mind of the old triangle. Like what is it? You can get it good, cheap, or fast, and pick any two, right? And what your comments are kind of reminding me is there's this risk leg too, right? Of that you need to, efficiency and savings, but also risk has to be balance in that. And sometimes that can be difficult when things are coming down from above. Well, like we're running, I need 3 AI projects and we're going to report on them every month, man. It's going to we're going to change ourselves from the inside out, blah, 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 blah. AI at the heart of everything. But each functional area knows their functional area the best, right? And can assess some of that risk. And so when is it too risky not to hop on something? When is it too risky to maybe embed it in this part of the process or try to apply AI or certainly an agent to this set of rules, et cetera. So that's an interesting triangle. I think that's really
Well, so
useful.
think about this for a moment. Think about this, Clark. So you opened up with like, yep, back in the day, I was one of the people that reviewed products for magazines when magazines mattered. Okay.
Yeah.
That is where you went. That's where you went to figure out what to buy, right? Right
Yep.
through like they launched a magazine called Right Size, and that whole magazine was aimed at trying to help companies, enterprises, to figure out how much they could move away from large machines and to downsize to smaller machines. That's where you got your learnings, right?
Yeah.
Now think about what it is now to make a decision about a purchase. Right? You don't go to a magazine to read about it. It's changed so much. And where AI is concerned, I mean, it's a different question. You didn't ask the question about how much risk am I willing to assume to stay competitive. It was just like, what is somebody else telling me that I should be looking at? And so the buyer just gets more power and more control over that decision now.
So what are some warning signs that this may be headed your way in the marketing organization? One thing you sort of referred to that I think is a common one is a change in leadership, change in the organization. So you kind of had things agreed to, quote unquote, whether you did a great job of that or not. You kind of all have, the reports are set up a certain way. When people are going to get frustrated or not at various levels, and then there's a shakeup. So maybe a change in management or the organization is one thing. Are there other things that you can kind of smell in the air that you think, well, we're about to have yet again this age-old tangle with sales and marketing, so that you can kind of anticipate them and work to alignment earlier or realignment earlier?
Yeah, a couple of things about that. One is it's very possible that you could end up with your back against the wall, and there aren't a lot of good warning signs. I've seen that happen where I don't know if it's because it's denial or it's just focused on other things, but if you're a more marketing person, especially if you're the marketing leader, and you're not mindful to that this is important, that at the board level, you're going to have to, I'm giving you money.
Sure.
That's the attitude. I'm giving you money. You need to tell me what I'm getting for it.
For
Right.
sure. Yeah.
And so the signs are, I mean, there's little places along the way where it's going to start to, manifest board meetings, board preparation, right? if there's whether it's changed or not, I know if the board is expecting you to contribute 70% of the pipeline for new logo, if that's what they're expecting, and you come in and you don't have that and you consistently don't show it, it's going to get you. And at that point, either you have to find some unnatural way to create pipeline if you can, or start looking for a job, or get them to change the way they measure. Right? What are your options at that point? That last one, getting them to actually stop and take on another way to measure, that's a tough one. That doesn't happen overnight. That's like a culture
Yeah.
thing of
How
getting
do you do that? What
sales.
would you say are the components of making that happen? Obviously, you're making
Man,
to a certain extent you're making a case, right? What would
yeah.
you say are important to have in that
We
conversation?
might as well shoot for the moon here, or shoot for the
Yeah,
stars. It really gets back to the really core element or the core essence of what marketing should be doing. Right? How do you know marketing is doing the right thing? Ultimately, if you've got a marketing team that has the ability, their whole charter is to test, measure, learn, optimize, repeat. If they're doing that and they've got good measures and good tools, and tools are pretty good to do that at this point, and if your data is good enough, if I was a CEO or a board, the first thing I would ask my marketing leader is like, you need to show me how you continuously measure, optimize, test, and do better. That's what I want to see. And if I see that, then I have confidence in you, and you can keep showing me that that's working. I'm pretty much good with you. Getting the board or getting those guys to do that, it isn't an hour meeting. It's something different. It's you have to shift their view of marketing from you guys are the people that just like create pipeline, and if you're not doing that, then we're just going to get rid of you. It's not quite that black and white, but you get the idea. You have to change that mindset from that. And the way you do that is that you have to start with some kind of a plan that you've developed that's a roadmap to how you're going to change their thinking. It requires meetings dedicated to this stuff. And I think the biggest problem or the biggest challenge to that is getting them to actually sit down and pay attention and listen because they're busy too. Now,
sure.
if I was to get back into the CMO world, I mean, I did it for 20 years. If I was going to do it again, the first thing I would do coming into a gig, or even before I accepted a gig, it would be like, we need to get agreement for how I'm going to be measured. We're going to get specific about that before I ever walked in, because once you're in, you're a marketing leader. Your honeymoon's over like in a matter of months at
That's
best,
right.
and they're
Well,
expecting you
it's
to
so
do things.
critical. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah,
I was going to say they're expecting you to actually deliver while you're figuring everything out,
yeah,
and the clock is running way faster than you think it is. But man, if you haven't got agreement on how you're going to get measured, or if that measure is not attainable, it's a predictable ending. It's just a matter
yeah.
of when it is going to end.
No situation on the ground is ever any better than they told you in the interview process, right? There's always more
No,
to
no.
contend with or something. And so you think, even if you kind of have I've got a pretty, rapid, a strategy of rapid deployment improvement that I'm going to lay down. There's always, all these other things that are jumping up and nipping at you that slow you down. And on the sales side, the sales leadership side, you have to have a sales leader in place that understands all the things that all the easier all the easier excuses and the challenges inside the organization that can make things look like you've got a selling problem outside the organization, or that you're not being supported the right way by marketing. So you can have a real, first of all, and straightforward conversation about the interconnected machinery of go to market, right?
Yeah. I mean, think of it this way. I think it was Marketo that did this. Companies still do this who sell their tech. It's like their message to the marketing leader is, we're going to help you get a voice, right, at the executive table. Now,
Yeah.
do you think that they asked the CEO, the COO, the CFO, the CRO, do you think they expect them to prove that they should have a voice at the table?
Yeah.
The whole idea, it's just, I mean, I kind of say that flippantly, but it's true. If that's the footing that the marketing organization has to earn a voice at the table, what more do you need to know that the executives and those guys are not looking at marketing the right way? and that's where everything really has to start to change, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah. We've talked about this on the podcast before. I mean, and certainly my opinion is marketing, quote unquote, marketing, or that organization should know more, should be the best equipped organization to know what's going on out in the market, right? You're talking to prospects, you're talking to customers, you're talking to analysts. Who has more information, right? You are having thousands of conversations with all the folks that I just mentioned and are constantly tuning programs to more effectively communicate. You're working with product on extracting out what the real difference is, so that you can take it to customers and understand from them the real benefit they're getting out of them, right? And to kind of show up and be the demand gen team or something, that's shame on us, right? I mean, that's, if you're going to lead a marketing organization, a go-to-market organization, a revenue organization, and you're not ready to kind of like pull that chair out at the table, without necessarily being invited, you probably aren't going to be successful, I don't think.
I tend to agree. And it kind of comes back to where I started. What I do is, depending on how you want to look at it, a lot of what I do is marketing people are their backs are already up against the wall. And then I have to go find the data and the story to prove otherwise. That's a lot of what comes out of this stuff. I'm very good at being able to pull the data and show that the expectations or the understanding of what marketing is or is not doing are wrong, and I can get the data out there, and I'm outside of it. I'm not in the
Yeah.
hurricane. I'm Switzerland, and they'll actually stop and they'll listen. I work for great people who are more than capable of doing this stuff. But you know how it is. There's a bias to it because you're on the payroll versus somebody who's outside of it. But a lot of it comes down to just like, what's the problem du jour? And unfortunately, a lot of what a marketer does is like they're defending and they want to get ahead of it, but they're put in this position where they're burning a lot of time and energy defending. Give you one quick
Yeah.
example of like I've got one client indirectly where the sales and the marketing, they just the execs decided we are not going to talk about marketing versus sales source pipeline. We're going to put that aside. We've looked at the data. We know that marketing's fingerprints are on the wrench enough, influencing pipeline, but we're just not going to have that conversation anymore. And what they gained in terms of just like shutting down all the gamesmanship and all the dysfunction that happens around that model of either or, one or the other, that was the win. And so instead, they agreed they were just going to talk about pipeline more from understanding pipeline converting and not just like black or white, yes or no. It's that old joke of like it's not a joke. CEO looks at the marketing guy, looks at the sales guy, and goes, "Hey, if I had a dollar, am I better off giving it to you or you?" That happens still,
Absolutely.
and that is
Absolutely
how
it
they
does.
see the
Yeah.
world. So the education of getting them to break frame from that view of it's either or. I mean, geez, look at a typical considered purchase. It's complicated. It's very complicated potentially. It goes on for a year and involves 10 or 20 people. How can you ever even begin to think that there's a one or the other black or white reason for that thing to happen? Never.
Yeah.
And you're hurting yourself
Yeah.
because you really want to understand the deal, not credit.
Well, yeah, right. Yeah. That's the point is the result. We've put these organizations together to take some people's money, and invest it in building something valuable that other folks will give us money for. I mean, that's what the machine is to do. But if you're not, if you're not able to understand end to end and realize that it's an end to end, particularly with the technologies that we're talking about today, it is, you're not doing your job as a leader, at the top of the organization, if you can't understand how that all needs to work together and keep your folks from falling into, because hey, the day to day is rough, man. We got enough problems. There's always somebody on our back about them. It's easy to fall in to kind of camp up and become a tribe right inside the organization. That's one of the biggest challenges I think of sitting in the CEO seat. Anyway,
CMO is a tough job. CMO is a tough, tough, tough job, man. No matter
oh
where it
yeah,
is, if it's B2B and you're a CMO, it is it is. People don't understand generally, like really, it's a tough role, and it's not for everybody. But man, that whole measurement thing, you better crack the nut on that part, or it's just it's never going to go well. You've got to get agreement on that.
And that's what these conversations are all about. So thanks for digging in on it. When you're not wrestling with all of this, what are the how do you find solace away from all this? What kind of projects do you have on the personal front or etc. that might be inspirational to us to for ways for us to unwind or for projects for us to take on when we're not in our day to day.
Hmm. I mean, with a family, that's always the best distraction of all. I mean, that's still to me, if I can get time to go hang out, our daughter's 24 and we were out in the Santa Cruz Mountains yesterday. That kind of distraction is just so energizing just to get away. It's so peaceful and so quiet. It's such the opposite of B2B tech and all that stuff. Um, I'm working on a book. The book is actually it's a labor of love because it incorporates some of these things that we've talked about, Clark. Mainly, it's the idea that marketers are always going to be at risk if if the board, the investors, and the executive team don't really understand what they do and what good looks like. Because if they don't know that and they don't know a good definition of that, everything falls down from there. And so it all almost, like I said earlier, it almost always comes to that. So the book is really aimed at whether it works or not is a different question, but it's aimed at trying to help investors and boards and CEOs and executive teams better understand the reality of marketing so that they can engage with them better in a more productive, functional way. That's the goal. And at the
Yeah.
very least, marketers are going to want it so they can go drop it on the desk of these people and go, here, read that. And even if nothing happens, they can maybe feel better about it. But that's kind of a labor of love right now.
Yeah. Well, and you've seen, you've had a front row seat, like you said, at, 400 or 500 of these organizations at this point, right? Gosh, that'll be great. Well, we look forward to having you back on the podcast when the book comes out to talk all about that and what you've, the tablets that you'll bring down from the mountain to help us
Hmm.
do this even a little bit better. Um, Tom Grubb, thank you so much for taking the time. Thanks for sharing your insights from all the different engagements and all the different takes from the technology side to all the way to the people side. It's been really a great conversation across the gamut, and we thank you for making time for us and joining us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Truly enjoyed it, Clark. It's always good talking with you.
For sure, for sure. And thanks to all of you who are watching or listening. We'll be back again soon with another episode. Thanks for the time, and let us know below what you learned, what else you'd like to hear us talking about. All right, take care, everyone.